What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. It is great to see you all again. So today I'm going to be taking you guys through my 8-step process to editing Instagram pictures. So I had this idea for a video a while back, and just to check if you guys even wanted to see my editing process, I put a poll up on Instagram, and as you can see, the results were pretty good. So I'm gonna make it, and I'm now gonna head over to my desk. Let's go. Alright, so I'm first gonna let you guys know what the 8 steps are that I use when I'm editing my Instagram pictures, and then I'm gonna take you through them individually, and I'll also show you some screen recordings just to show you exactly how I do them. So my 8-step process is: number 1, sorting and importing; number 2 is cropping and rotating; then you go on to light edits, color edits, effects, profiles, and then Photoshop edits, and then from there you have like little additions and stuff. So now that you guys know exactly what that is, I'm gonna open up my phone and you guys are gonna see exactly how I edit these pictures, and I'll talk you through them. So the first process is sorting and importing. Basically how this works is I will choose the best picture from all the shots that I took, and also the one that doesn't have any blur and is at the angle I was meant to shoot it at. I'll usually import my pictures straight from my camera using the Canon app, and then after some deleting and deciding, I'll then have my final picture to start editing with. Okay, so for step number 2, we're going to open up Lightroom. Most of the time I don't really crop my images in editing, because I'll usually shoot them in frame exactly how I want them to look to save me doing this later on. But every now and then I might just center the subject of the picture using the grid that Lightroom has. I also try to straighten them up if the horizon isn't straight or if things don't quite line up. This brings us to step number 3, which is light edits. You'll see it here on the bottom of the screen. It's where the little sun emoji thingy is. Usually when I'm shooting or doing a photo shoot, I'll actually overexpose my pictures by a little bit. I'll start with exposure down and highlights down and just fiddle around with those until it looks about right. Shadows are dependent. Sometimes I'll brighten them, which makes the picture a bit more flat, or other times I'll darken them, which gives some depth and also gives your picture a bit of a moody look to it. Blacks and whites are also completely dependent on what type of picture I'm going for. Whether I want it dark and moody or brighter and happy, adjusting these can also sometimes bring out the details in an image, so I'll also adjust those accordingly. The colors I choose in an image are usually dependent on my grid theme, or even the season or the vibe I'm trying to go for in that picture. So this is kind of dependent, and I can cover this in a lot of detail, but for now I'm just going to show you guys the basics of color editing and just how I apply it to my pictures. When you open the color page on Lightroom, you will see all of these. Now I don't usually fiddle with these too much, except maybe temperature sometimes, but yeah. If you go here to mix, you'll see that this will pop up. So as you can see, it has each individual color that you can then change and manipulate. I use these to change the vibe of the picture entirely. So I usually make small changes and try to make it a bit more subtle. When you like pump colors and oversaturate them, it kind of just ends up looking a bit like this. So you don't really want that. It doesn't look great. Next up is step number 5, which is effects. It's this little block over here at the bottom. So I like to usually start off by adding a little bit of texture and a little bit of clarity, but never overdo these, otherwise it looks a bit like this, which once again isn't great. What dehaze does is it'll basically clear up your image a bit. So if your image is dusty and kind of just looking a bit disgusting, so when you amp up the dehaze, it'll clear things up. It'll also make color changes look a bit more obvious sometimes. So you might want to either do dehaze first or just slide it up a tiny bit. You don't want those things to be too obvious. Lastly, I use a tiny bit of vignetting. This just draws attention to the subject. I try not to overdo it. As with all editing, you don't overdo it, otherwise the picture just becomes a bit dark on the edges. So I'll sometimes also just add some feathering to the edges. It just really makes it blend nicely, and it ends up just looking way better. Last thing in Lightroom is profiles. Now, what profiles are, they're basically a really fancy word used to describe filters. I try to use these as little as possible because I kind of consider them cheating in a way. If I do use them, I will usually use the modern profiles, and I'll just dial them down a bit, because just like in color editing, you have to be kind of subtle with your profile editing. Also, if you have a lot of similar pictures that have the same environment, you don't have to go through the hassle of trying to edit all of them the exact same way. What I usually do is I go here, and then you tap copy settings, then you can go to one of the other pictures that is similar, and you hit this button again, and then paste settings, and boom, you've got the exact same editing on the other picture. Okay, so that's everything I do in Lightroom. Now, usually from here, I will just export it and I'll take it straight to Instagram and I'll post it. But every now and then I'll take pictures over to Photoshop. The mobile version of this app is called Adobe Photoshop Fix. So I'll usually open up this, and in this I try to do as little as possible, but if there's an object that I don't like, or there's just something in the picture that completely distracts from the main picture, then I'll remove it using the spot heal, or sometimes the clone stamp, which duplicates an area to the chosen spot. So here's just an example of that picture. So you can see here in this picture of a horse, the wire at the front is kind of distracting from the main thing. So I'll just go in here and choose spot heal, and then you can change the size of your brush and the hardness of your brush. And I'll just go over it a little bit, and let's just speed this up quickly. So there we go, you see that I managed to take out the whole fence in the front, and I also just managed to take out that little house in the background, because that was also a little bit distracting. And here with this boat picture, you can see that the rope is still attached. So I don't want that there, basically, because it doesn't look very natural, and I just want it to look a bit more boss, if you want to call it that. So I'm just going to go in here to the spot heal once again, and I'm just going to clean it up a little bit and remove that rope. So you can see that, there we go, it's looking pretty cool. Okay, so now we're on to the last app that I use for editing. I actually don't use it that much, but I'm just going to show you guys anyway because I use it every now and then. I try not to, but yeah, here it is. You can see here when you open up lens distortions, you first have to import your picture, and then from here you can see you are spoiled for choice with all these different things you can add. There's light options, there's weather options, there's other little bits and pieces you can add, and yeah, they can really just add to your picture and make it look a little bit cooler. I try to dial them down once again, keeping it simple and keeping it just a little bit subtle, but yeah. The reason I don't use this app too much is because I kind of have mixed feelings about adding things to pictures. I try to keep them as natural as possible and as normal as possible, but every now and then I'll use it just to improve a picture or just to spice it up a little bit. So here's an example of one of those pictures. So yeah, that's kind of a cool example, but I try to use it as little as possible. There is one more app. I know I said the previous one was my last one, but this is definitely my last one. And this app I use to plan my Instagram feed. So if you guys ever wonder how I get my colors right and how I get things to like correspond and blend, this is the app that I use. There are plenty of them on the Play Store. You can get a bunch of them. This is just the one I use. So yeah, that's that. So there you guys have it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel so you can get more content. I am going back to Moy River again soon, so I'll try to make some content when I'm there. I'm planning a vlog while I'm there so you guys can actually see what we get up to on a daily basis. So that'll be pretty cool. If you want to see that, please be sure to subscribe to my channel once again. And also, if you have any ideas for future videos, be sure to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll try my best to get to those. And until next time, cheers.